Hypnosis is an effective way to access the subconscious mind and change your negative thought patterns. And this can help you lose weight, stop smoking, become more confident, and access creativity more easily. And these are just a few of the possibilities. But how do you know if you can be hypnotized? Hi, I'm clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones, here to share my knowledge of hypnosis with you to help you change your life. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're here to improve your life, I'm here for you. Hypnotic suggestibility is a mystery to so many people. I'm here to tell you it's all about understanding the research. I'm going to show you what the research tells us about the factors that affect how easy or difficult it would be to hypnotize a particular person. You're also going to find out how suggestible you are because I have an assessment that you can do on yourself. But first, let's look at why we should be concerned with hypnotic suggestibility in the first place. Hypnotic suggestibility testing has existed in some form since Mesmer popularized it in the latter 18th century. It was not until the mid-20th century, however, that it passed through the prism of scientific scrutiny. Hypnotic suggestibility is a somewhat controversial subject. There are some people who believe it's not necessary for someone to be hypnotically suggestible in order for hypnosis to be successful. There are others who believe it to be an integral part of hypnosis, especially when using it for research and the treatment of certain issues. Hypnotic suggestibility testing is an assessment done to find out your level of hypnotizability. Hypnotic suggestibility has been defined by the APA, the American Psychological Association, of which I am a member, as, quote, an individual's ability to experience suggested alterations in physiology, sensations, emotions, thoughts, or behavior during hypnosis. There are various kinds of measures used to test suggestibility. Some measures are more scientifically based, while others are very informal. For example, when using hypnosis for research purposes, you will want to use a scientifically validated assessment measurement, such as the Stanford scales. When using it for entertainment or certain clinical purposes, however, a single quick method, such as magnetic hands, could be used. There are many fast and simple suggestibility tests that are used for non-research purposes. For example, when using magnetic hands, the client is asked to imagine that their hands, which are facing each other a few inches apart, are being pulled together like magnets. For the purposes of this video, the term hypnotizability will be used interchangeably with hypnotic suggestibility and hypnotic susceptibility. There are multiple reasons why people use hypnotic suggestibility testing, including the following. It helps select the most effective hypnosis method. A hypnotist uses an induction to put you in a mental state that prepares you to be hypnotized. Usually, an induction involves some form of relaxation. A client may be instructed to close their eyes and practice some deep breathing, for example. Because assessments use different types of inductions and suggestions, for example, motor versus cognitive, it gives the hypnotist insight into which types would help produce the most hypnotizable state. Suggestibility testing can help you find out if the subject is more visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. It also provides a warm-up. It's important that the client is in the proper frame of mind to help make hypnosis successful. A warm-up assists the client in obtaining the proper focus. In addition, any anxiety that the client feels can be reduced by the testing. It helps the client to get used to the process. If the testing shows that a person is hypnotizable, well, it leads the subject to believe that hypnotism will work for them. As a result, they will have an increased confidence in the procedure, and it's more likely that the procedure will be successful. Suggestibility testing is often used for treatment and research purposes. There appears to be an interaction between hypnotic suggestibility and treatment outcome for certain types of challenges. For example, in 2008, Milling found that the success of using hypnosis for pain reduction was dependent on how susceptible the person was to being hypnotized. Now remember, I'm using susceptible and suggestible interchangeably here to mean the same thing in this video. The early research calls it susceptibility. I like to use the term suggestibility, so that's why I use both in this video. Also, the more hypnotizable the subject, the more pain reduction. Similar results have also been found in other hypnotic treatment studies on pain. When dealing with other treatment issues, however, such as smoking cessation and obesity, the results are not as conclusive. In 2003, Lin, Schindler, and Meyer did not find definitive evidence that the level of suggestibility was a factor in the treatment of issues besides pain management. It should be noted, however, that even at lower levels of suggestibility, there is little reason to believe that hypnosis cannot be an effective treatment modality. Tests usually begin with some rapport building between the hypnotist and the subject. After some rapport is established, a simple induction takes place. The induction is followed by the test suggestions. Scales of hypnotic suggestibility usually contain test suggestions which are pass-fail. The items are designed to assess a range of hypnotic fields. Test suggestions are either motor or cognitive in nature, meaning you're either doing something or thinking about something. A positive motor suggestion is an attempt to produce motor behavior, movement. For example, it might be suggested that a subject's hand will rise without any assistance. A negative motor suggestion would be attempting to inhibit motor action. For example, it may be suggested that a subject will not be able to open their eyes. Cognitive suggestions attempt to produce or inhibit perceptions or sensations. An example of a positive cognitive suggestion would be a taste hallucination, such as tasting something sweet or sour that's not actually there. A negative cognitive suggestion might be a sensation in which it's suggested that a participant cannot hear, otherwise known as hypnotic deafness. Now, let's talk about the Stanford Hypnotic Susceptibility Scales. The first Stanford scales, A and B, although a major advance in the measurement of hypnotizability, had limited usefulness because they were made up of only motor items and didn't take into account cognitive processes. In 1967, Weitzenhofer and Hilgard improved upon their original Stanford scales with Form C. The new version included items that more fully assessed the subject's ability to experience cognitive processes rather than just motor behaviors during hypnosis. Form C also presented items in order of increasing difficulty, aiding in differentiating the level of hypnotizability between subjects. The SHSS A and B consists of 12 items that take up to an hour to complete. The items are arranged in order of progressive difficulty. Subjects are given a hypnotic induction followed by different hypnotic suggestions. For example, one suggestion asks you to imagine your hand is so heavy that you can't hold it up. If you can hold up your hand, then you fail that item. Most people are able to perform the first few items, but not many make it to the end of the test. According to the scales, the farther you get, the more susceptible you are to hypnosis. Form C has items that require movement, motor items, but also includes cognitive suggestions such as hallucinations. These hallucinations relate to the senses of vision, taste, and hearing. Form C also attempts to measure hypnotic depth and post-hypnotic suggestion. It is not an overstatement to say that the SHSS is the most popular and most studied assessment measure of hypnotic suggestibility. It has also been found to be scientifically reliable, having a reliability index of 0.85, which is high, meaning that you can expect the same results upon repeated administration 85% of the time. One of the main issues with the Stanford scales is the amount of time and resources that are needed for administration. They require a hypnotist to administer the scales one person at a time. As I've noted, this process takes about an hour, and as you might imagine, administering the SHSS to a large number of people can be quite cumbersome, and this may prohibit research from occurring on large groups. Because the validity of research often requires a large sample size, it was important to create a measure that could assess hypnotic suggestibility in a more efficient manner. In 1962, Shore and Orn developed the Harvard Group Scale of Hypnotic Susceptibility, Form A, HGSHSA, to serve that purpose. It shares many of the same items as the SHSS, but it is a self-report measure that can be administered to groups. If you want to find out how hypnotically suggestible you are, then head on over to drstevegjones.com and take the free self-assessment quiz that I've designed based on my research. That's drstevegjones.com. Head on over there after this YouTube video. Hypnotizability has long been thought to be an unchangeable trait. Because hypnotic suggestibility may affect the results of hypnotism as a treatment modality, it seems important to find out if a person's level of hypnotic suggestibility is modifiable. The following variables have been shown to impact the assessment of hypnotizability. Genetics. It does appear that hypnotizability is partially passed on through our genes. In 1973, Arlene Morgan conducted research on twins and found a higher level of heritability between identical twins than fraternal twins. Another factor that seems to influence the hypnotic susceptibility of someone is oxytocin. It's a naturally occurring hormone in the body, and increases in oxytocin appear to improve suggestibility in clients. Recent research by Bryant and Hung in 2013 has concluded that oxytocin increases social persuasion in subjects during hypnosis, which may make a hypnotist more effective. Rapport also is a factor. A good rapport between hypnotist and client also appears to boost suggestibility. This makes sense in that you're more likely to comply with someone's request if you share positive rapport with them. Absorption is another factor that seems to play a role. Absorption is a person's ability to be involved in a sensory or imaginary state. Absorption as a construct has been well studied and has shown a consistent association with hypnotizability. So, for example, if you're able to daydream more easily, really get into the daydream and feel yourself there, then you may be more suggestible. Dissociation is another factor. Dissociation has been described as the ability to detach from your environment. When someone exhibits a lack of integration of mental processes, they may be described as being in a dissociative state. And it's thought that this dissociative state lends itself nicely to being hypnotized, since they share many similarities. Another factor is neural connectivity. People with greater connectivity between the left and right hemispheres, meaning they're connected more efficiently, and we're talking about just the frontal cortex here, they have higher levels of hypnotic suggestibility than those with less connectivity. Expectation is another factor. The placebo effect is alive and well as a factor in treatment outcomes, and it may play an even more integral role in hypnosis. If you believe that you're hypnotizable and that using hypnosis will lead to the desired treatment outcome, then you will exhibit increased hypnotizability. Also, drugs. Numerous researchers have given subjects drugs to increase hypnotic suggestibility with varying success. Alcohol, marijuana, and LSD have all shown promise in increasing hypnotizability. A significant challenge with measuring the effects of drugs is that you don't know whether the change is due to the specific effect of the drug or simply due to a general feeling of being high. In addition to that, some of these drugs remain illegal in the United States. There does appear to be some evidence that hypnotic suggestibility can be modified, although some of the factors cited relate to static genetic and physiological variables. Others are social and psychological in nature and therefore subject to change. Non-hypnotic suggestibility measures how people respond to a suggestion without hypnotic induction. Hypnotic suggestibility, on the other hand, is a response when induction is used. Since most of the popular scales of hypnotizability use induction, they would technically be measuring hypnotic suggestibility under the hypnotic framework. So, why does this matter? There is research that suggests that people's response to hypnotic suggestion is almost as strong without an induction as it is with one. This brings up an important question. If induction is not important, what are all the suggestibility scales that use inductions actually measuring? Looking at the results of this research, Kirsch feels it would be more accurate to define hypnotizability as the difference between hypnotic and non-hypnotic or imaginative suggestibility. He believes that the operational definition currently used for hypnotizability is not supported by the research, therefore invalidating many assessment measures. Instead, he argues that hypnotizability is simply measuring a subject's expectations of the response rather than their true suggestibility to hypnosis. This puts into question whether hypnotic suggestibility testing is even necessary for hypnosis research. The research on hypnotic suggestibility and non-hypnotic suggestibility is a major challenge to the field of hypnotic suggestibility testing. The most popular scales, for example the SHSS, were developed before a difference between hypnotic and non-hypnotic suggestibility was ever explored in the research. If you believe that induction is not necessary to measure suggestibility, then scales that use induction are no longer valid. It needs to be kept in mind, however, that there are many people in the field who do not adhere to the distinction between hypnotic suggestibility and non-hypnotic suggestibility, and who continue to support the use of traditional measurement scales such as the SHSS and HGSHS. Another challenge with suggestibility testing is that it may interfere with hypnosis if it leads people to believe that they are not hypnotizable. If a patient is given a suggestibility test and they score low, this may lead them to believe that they will not benefit from hypnotic treatment. Expectations matter, and if expectations of the effectiveness of hypnosis are questioned, that may lead to a lack of confidence in the hypnotic process. For this reason, I choose not to teach hypnotic suggestibility tests in my online hypnosis class. Despite a fair amount of research that shows the efficacy of hypnotism, the general public at large still believes that hypnotism is not based on serious science. The depiction of hypnosis in popular culture certainly doesn't help. Because of its portrayal, there are professionals who avoid and ignore the subject of hypnosis. This leads to a lack of research and funding to further examine the role of hypnotic suggestibility assessment and its correlates. If you're not sure whether you're suggestible or not, you're not alone. That's why I've created a free online hypnotic suggestibility quiz. It only takes a couple of minutes and you get to see the results immediately. Go to drstevegjones.com to take the quiz now. You'll be glad you did. And there you have it. Now you've seen and heard the research on hypnotic suggestibility. It can be measured easily through a series of easy questions and/or exercises. I don't use it with clients before a session because the result may affect the session. We also need to keep in mind that more current research is needed since the majority of the research was done in the 1950s and 1960s. Have you tested your hypnotic suggestibility? How suggestible are you? Leave your findings and thoughts in the comments below. I'm interested to see if anyone was suggestible who thought they weren't, or vice versa. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Steve G. Jones, hoping you have an outstanding day.